Alright, I'm gonna try to make this quick because as you can tell, I'm looking a little disheveled, and that's for a good reason. For the past week, I have had COVID. It finally caught me, and it's been a bad time. But I still wanted to make this video, not because I love Jeff Keighley, well, I kind of do, but not because I love the Game Awards, not because I think they're important. I will give you reasons a little later as to why I don't think they're important, but the actual reason is because I just want to feel alive, Because as Xenoblade fans, we have to appreciate that Xenoblade 3 got nominated not just for Best Soundtrack, not just for Best RPG, but for the Game of the Year, the quintessential award, the most important award in terms of worldwide recognition. And I think that is phenomenal considering where this series started. By the way, it didn't get nominated for Best Narrative, a little questionable, but it's okay, because from where this franchise started as this game that they just refused to localize for a while, and to just generally, slowly but surely, gaining steam, gaining that momentum, gaining fans, until now Xenoblade 3, undeniably one of the best games of this year. Even the normies can't escape. They will tune in enthusiastically, as everybody does. Everybody watches the Game Awards for the awards. They have no choice but to acknowledge Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And as Xenoblade fans, we should be happy about that. We should be content. Because as we all know, there is no shot in hell it's gonna win. It's fun to have copium. It's fun to believe. But Xenoblade 3, I hate to break it to you guys, it's still a very niche franchise, Whatever games are the most popular have a huge advantage, right? That's just inherently what that means. When you have a number of critics who are voting for something, because that's how it's decided. Jeff Keighley himself is not deciding these things. Do not blame Jeff. It's a big ask to tell, hey, critics, if you want your vote taken seriously, play all these games. Because Xenoblade 3 is a very long game. There's a lot of long games, in fact. It's not like a movie, for example, where it's only like 2 hours, and you could realistically watch all the films, right? It's way easier than playing all the video games, that's for sure. And the thing is, even if they have played Xenoblade 3, it's still less likely they'll vote for it because it's a JRPG, and JRPGs, they're not like a super niche genre. I'm sure even the most average Joe has a JRPG they can find and appreciate. But still, compare it to Elden Ring and God of War. Let's just be a little honest here. If you don't think Elden Ring and God of War are going to sweep, you are very pure-hearted, you are very naive in the wholesome way, and I appreciate that. Or you're just delusional. And in that respect, you gotta, calm down a little bit and start to acknowledge the truth. But yeah, I would say that's the main point of this video, is just to remind everybody. Because everybody likes to say, oh, I don't care about the Game Awards. But then you get butthurt. You know you do. Everybody acts like they don't care, but then you can see on Twitter, everyone cares all of a sudden. Whoa. Wouldn't you know it? It's because, people like to see their favorites be recognized as great. And that's relatable, right? I mean, how could you not feel that way? It honestly just comes down to what's the most mainstream, what's the most popular, what's the most accessible, what's the most type of genre that appeals to the most people, It's all those factors that don't really determine how good is this game, right? I mean, obviously when there are games that are equal in those respects, then it comes down to how good the games are. But generally speaking, those are major factors that some games, like Xenoblade 3, just can't help. It's not Xenoblade 3's fault. It doesn't have all that. It's the people's fault. It's human beings. It's a flaw of the human species, okay? And, hey, we can't help it, right? And honestly, if you do tune in, just remember, okay? If it helps wash away the salt, just remember, why are you actually tuning in? It's probably not for the awards. You're tuning in to see the game announcements and the trailers. So let's just be honest. That's why we all watch the Game Awards. It's this weird show by this lovable Canadian known as Jeff Keighley, where it's like a Game Awards show and the game announcements, which most people care about and judge the show based on. But then there's this huge 50% of the show where it's just ads. There's a lot going on. that doesn't really pertain to just the awards. And maybe this is normal. I don't really watch the Oscars or any other kind of award show like that, so maybe it's normal. You guys could tell me differently, but it is a strange existence. I understand you want your favorite to be recognized, and I understand that gamers want to act like games are this important piece of art form in humanity. Not saying they aren't, but that's why they want to treat the Game Awards as important. But just remember, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. This is not related to Xenoblade, but I will admit, I have not played either Elden Ring or God of War Ragnarok. Okay? I want to play Elden Ring because I love Bloodborne, but for some reason, just for me, the Soulsborne games aren't games that I feel motivated to play. God of War Ragnarok, I played the first one, and I get why everyone likes it, but it just didn't really resonate with me, so I don't have plans to play that one in particular. But here's what I will say. I'll give you reasons why I think Elden Ring will win, and why I think God of War will win. Okay? Elden Ring, I think, is going to win, because they had this huge explosion of popularity, right? Soulsborne games are already pretty popular, but Elden Ring is on a different level. It is selling bananas. It reminds me of when Animal Crossing was released back in 2020, and I thought it had a legitimate chance at Game of the Year, only because it had that huge explosion in popularity, right? When you go on social media that year, just like Elden Ring this year, you can't avoid that game. You just can't avoid hearing about it. You can't avoid feeling FOMO about it, right? And that's a strong influence. That's a strong factor that will be like, hey, when we think about the games that came out this year, how are you not going to think of Elden Ring? It's probably going to be the first game that comes to your minds unless you have like a very specific game that you love, like for me for Xenoblade 3. But in terms of the general landscape, yeah, it's hard not to think of Elden Ring. It's also the most critically acclaimed in terms of critic scores, which I could go on a whole minimum 15 rant about critic scores. That's its own separate topic. If you want to hear about things that aren't important, that might surprise you, that's a whole different video for another day. Elden Ring has the gamer sweat. This is important. It's a mainstream game where you see the sweatiest gamers. And what do I mean by that? I mean that anybody who plays Elden Ring just feels cooler. For better or worse, you know, you see some elitism, you see some annoying people off of this who act like they're better for playing Soulsborne games. But it is a fact, if you play Elden Ring or any Soulsborne games, you're just gonna feel like more legit of a gamer. Just because they're difficult. Right? And I just feel like that's a perfect storm, considering how popular it is, the fact that just playing it by itself, whether or not you even beat it, just the fact that you played it and made some progress, you already feel good about yourself, you know? Like, that is such an intrinsic bias towards it. I'm giving a lot of reasons why Elden Ring should win, honestly. The last thing, the actual last thing, is that the Soulsborne games are legendary, right? Not just in terms of popularity, but in terms of its impact. There are so many Souls-like games, you will obnoxiously hear, this game is the Dark Souls of blank. And I know that's a meme, but it has been said many times unironically. It's just like this go-to comparison, because that's just how legendary this franchise is. It's already ingrained in gamer culture. Now, it's super popular. Whoever you are, it's just, I don't know how you can beat that. Except for the sole reason why God of War is likely to win. One reason. Only a single reason. So, I don't watch the Oscars, like I said, but I do know that there's this thing called Oscar bait. God of War Ragnarok is the quintessential Game Award bait nominee. Honestly, if you don't know what I mean, just think about a Sony game. Single player focused, narrative driven, AAA budget, third person. You're Spider-Man, you're Last of Us, you're God of War. I'm not saying all these types of games are made by PlayStation, but they are associated with PlayStation, and that's a good strategy on them because they know not only is it Game Award bait, it's just normie bait. No shots at God of War, by the way. If you love God of War Ragnarok and you sincerely believe it should win, I'm not trying to, like, bring you down. I'm just saying this is where I come from, as someone who has played neither game. I would still bet on Elden Ring, personally, So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I know that turned into more of a Game Awards in general discussion. I'm actually happy about that because I'm not trying to like tear this show down. I do enjoy watching them, even though half the show is pretty boring. I do enjoy watching them. It's a fun watch when you have friends to watch them. And, you know, that's why I stream them. It's just fun to, like, we can laugh, we can be salty, we can do all those things together. It's just as long as we don't take them actually seriously. That's the main point in terms of the Game Awards in general I wanted to get across. And in terms of Xenoblade, it's just cool that it's there. Oh, actually, by the way, the one positive to getting COVID is that it's giving me more time to do the Xenoblade side quests. I took a break from the game. Now that I'm just like stuck in bed for most of the week, I've had time to play the side quests. I haven't been all the hero quests, ascension quests yet, but I'm on my way. And man, this whole experience has just revalidated my love for the game. Not that it was ever in doubt, but sometimes, you know, not to be like self-doubting or pessimistic, but sometimes you want to be able to look back on a game that you love and sincerely think to yourself, well, was it as good as I thought? Was I over-exaggerating? Because when you play a game or read a novel or watch a movie, it's not just about the game or novel or movie. It's about the context of that experience, right? It's about what's happening in your life. It's about how you feel. It's about whether or not you're in the mood for that. You could be watching something sincerely great, but you might not be in the mood for it. Or in my case with Xenoblade 3, I was fully hyped out of my mind for Xenoblade 3, and it met those expectations, so I might think higher of it than the average person. And now that there's been some time, a few months since it came out, I've been able to like look back on it in a more like sincere way, not let the hype get to me, and I still think it's a phenomenal game. There's still areas I'm discovering that I never even knew about. The side quests, I said this in my review, just fantastic. Well, in my review I said potentially or maybe the best Xenoblade side quest, but it is, just straight up, it is. This is like the new standard of JRPG side quests, and I think that game just sets a new standard for a lot of things JRPG, but I've talked about that game enough. You can find those videos. Oh yeah, actual last thing in this video I will say. Okay, this has been very just all over the place. Again, give me a break, okay? If you actually think, even a 1% in your minds, that a game with the battle system and UI of Xenoblade will ever win Game of the Year, you are wrong. I have seen people who look at the UI of Xenoblade and they're frightened. They never even want to approach it. I feel like it's a game, a franchise that's way less complicated than it appears, even if it is a more complex game than the average game. The battle system and all that, it's a big reason why I love Xenoblade, and if you love Xenoblade, it's probably a big reason for you. But it's also a big reason why it's never going to be that game of the year. It's never going to be that safe bet for best RPG of the year, because the reality is, if Xenoblade was a turn-based, simple turn-based JRPG, like your Dragon Quest, like your Persona, it'd probably be a lot more popular, and that is the sad truth that haunts me to my inner core every day. Anyway, that's it. Vote for Xenoblade 3 out of Copium. Buy Xenoblade 3 if you haven't. And I will see you whenever I feel like doing another video.